Hello pandas and other scrap enthusiasts, and welcome back to this shop. This video may not be for you. Now that I've got this place a little bit cleaned up, I decided to make a quick video for anybody who may just be starting recycling scrap and trying to make some money scrapping metal. I think that covers all the keywords. Yeah, now I realize many of my viewers already know all of this, and yes, this is a bit of a rehash of an old video, and it probably won't do as well, but it's still going to be the best starting point for anyone who wants to get started making money scrapping metal. Specifically, what to look for. What metals are valuable for scrapping. The list isn't that long, but once you know, you know. Now there will be a follow-up video with more tips and tricks like how to find it and what to do with it, but the basics start here.
And it doesn't get much more basic than steel. It's big, it's heavy, it's a metallurgical marvel, and it's everywhere. I spent years focusing on the good stuff and avoiding steel because I was using my small car. That was a huge oversight and a waste of my own time. Steel is the only reason I make money every day I scrap. Steel is the good stuff. Steel is the meal. It's 80% or more of what I make from scrap metal.
And this is why you always carry a magnet. Ferrous metals, that means mostly iron, aka steel, are magnetic. So if the magnet sticks, it goes in your steel pile. There are three categories to separate it into. The first one is light iron, aka tin shred. It's not tin, contains no tin, we just call it that, no further questions. This category is fantastic because it can have paint or plastic or bits of all sorts of junk to it. Doesn't matter, nobody cares, as long as it's mostly steel, you're good. But keep an eye out for the real nice chunks because they could be the second category, prepared steel. Not every scrapyard has this category, but you should try find one that does because it's worth more. Nice, thick pieces of steel that are ready to be melted and poured are more valuable, and at my yard, that means clean metal, completely free of contaminants like plastic or other metals, and greater than 1/8 of an inch thick. That's about the thickness of your standard regular headphone jack. And shorter than 4 feet. They are picky about this category, so get it right. And the third type of steel is cast iron. Now this isn't really worth more, it's just a different alloy, so it should be processed differently. And most of the time, your cast iron is just gonna go in the shred pile anyway, something like this old bathtub, because it'll be covered in contaminants or paint or whatnot. But the one type of cast iron that you should keep an eye out for are these brake discs and rotors. Now, these go in their own pile, and they're worth about $1 or more each, so I'm always happy to find them. Be aware though that many scrapyards are smaller operations and don't buy steel at all. They're non-ferrous only. Those types of locations will buy brake rotors, but at a much lower price. So you're better off to try and find a yard that buys all kinds of steel so you can get closer to their value. With steel out of the way, we can move on to non-ferrous metals, and we might as well start with copper. Big old fan favorite copper. Now, I keep 4 different bins of copper, 2 grades of 2 different types, and for the plumbing and other material, we've got number 1. That means perfectly clean with 0 contaminants, including oxidization. And number 2, which is the same stuff, but not quite clean enough to make it into number 1. So a bit of paint, some solder, a little bit of oxidization, but otherwise just copper. The second type is clean wire. Basically the same, number 1 and number 2. Number 1 is completely free of contaminants, and then number 2 is the same thing, but may have some stickers or residue or other junk on it. The important thing to know here is that thickness also matters. If it's thin angel hair stuff like this here, it's going to be number 2, no matter how clean it is, because a lot of it will burn away when it gets melted and refined. In order to count as number 1, it's got to be thick and solid enough that if you were to put a bend in it, you could make it hold its shape. Like that. It's kind of about the thickness of the graphite inside of a pencil. Now, both of these categories have a third ultra fine grade called bare bright. And in order to be bare bright, it is what it sounds like. It has to look brand new. Most of this stuff probably is bare bright. That only really happens for me when I strip insulated wire. And it's not really worth getting excited about because it only pays a little bit more than number 1 anyway. Speaking of copper wire, there are 6 or 7 for you to know about, but don't worry, it is easy to tell. The first 3 I keep in a bucket right here. We've got aluminum shielded BX, Romex or Lumix housing wire, and the old paper wrapped housing wire. Don't worry, this stuff is not asbestos, probably. These all go in on their own separate categories because they're worth a fair bit more than the other ones. The other one over here is number 1 insulated copper wire. This is solid core, same as the other number 1 stuff. It'll hold a bend if you pinch it. Everything else goes into my number 2 insulated wire bin. Your yard might want to see you divide this down further into data cable and such. It takes a while to fill this, so I don't really try that hard with this stuff. And if you're anything like me, you'll want to separate the best of the best stuff to strip for clean copper. And a wire stripping machine like this pays itself off real fast. This is my favorite. This is the Stripmeister. Links are in the description below. I've done wire stripping videos before, and I've got a whole playlist linked so where you can find those. But if you've got somewhere to be 8 gauge and above, anything thinner than that, and you're making less than minimum wage stripping it. Beyond that, you'll likely end up with bins for motors, transformers, and compressor motors. And these contain pretty decent amounts of copper, so they're well worth the time to remove if you practice. It's not hard, just keep in mind that the amount you earn by doing it goes up exponentially as the size goes up, which means you will end up with a bin of some that are too small to bother with, or that just became too difficult to finish. Something to watch out for, many items use copper-coated aluminum windings rather than solid copper windings, so motors from dishwashers and vacuum cleaners and the wires from booster cables for your car are typically copper-coated aluminum. So be sure to look at the core of the strands to check, and eventually you'll get a feel for how lightweight the aluminum ones are. Moving on then to copper's next door neighbor, brass. I love brass. Brass is great. If you're ever not sure if it's brass, just cut, file, grind, or scrape the edge of it and look for that nice brass color. I try to keep just 1 bin of clean processed brass. It doesn't really bother them if there's a bit of solder or some copper on there. Trust me, they won't mind. But there will be inevitably some pieces that are just not efficient to get fully clean, so you will end up with a small bin of dirty brass. Just try and keep it as small as possible because it makes a big difference. There's also red brass, which apparently is worth more, but I've never come across enough of it to bother separating the two. Now, aluminum is the second most common type of metal you're going to find, and you're going to want 4 bins of it. Those are cast aluminum, extruded aluminum, and old or painted aluminum. That's pretty much everything that isn't cast or extruded. And you can tell whether it's cast or extruded because of the way it is. There are different types of extruded aluminum, and if your scrapyard wants you to separate 6061 from 1100 or 7000 series or whatever, then find a different scrapyard because that place is going to be annoyingly picky with everything. And maybe you like that sort of thing, that's up to you. And the 4th bin is for dirty aluminum. Look, sometimes you've got a chunk that just isn't worth the time to clean up. This here weighs about a pound. At between 50 cents and $1 a pound, it's not worth spending 45 minutes learning how to take it apart. And the sooner you make peace with that, the happier you'll be. Just to be clear, all of these materials should be cleaned to the best of your ability. Having a bunch of mixed materials attached to the stuff in the bin will drop everything in the bin down to the dirty category. And clean here just means one type of metal free of other contaminants. So, do your best. And the final type of metal worth keeping a bin for is stainless steel. Now, there are way too many types of stainless steel, so in most cases you'd be better off keeping it simple. You want non-magnetic stainless steel. If a magnet doesn't stick, then it is most likely 304 stainless. If you aren't sure if it's stainless or aluminum, grind the surface and look for sparks, because aluminum doesn't spark. Also worth keeping an eye out for is 316 series stainless. This stuff is usually, well, can be ever so slightly magnetic, but it's usually stamped with a 316 somewhere on it, and it is worth more. The stainless lore runs deep, and I have done a whole video digging right into it if you want to know more. But for now, all you need to know is 304 and 316 stainless. Besides those bins, a scrapper should be on the lookout for various car parts. Aluminum engine blocks and transmissions, car batteries, and aluminum rims, as well as maybe the occasional catalytic converter. Now all of those items will be worth about $10 or more, so they're worth grabbing. Besides the cat. That's a specialty item that is worth learning more about if you don't already know. And I bet you can guess where you can find a series of videos to teach you all about it. Besides those primary collections, you will end up with a few small piles that are worth quite a bit less, and you can decide if you want to save them up or not depending on how much you make off of them. And those are zinc aluminum alloy, lighting ballasts, brass plug ends, Christmas string lights, and copper bearing scrap. That last one is just all these tiny little motors and transformers and inductors and sorts of things that you find on circuit boards. None of these categories put any wind under my boots, but they will put a few bucks in your pocket if you've got the space for them. And the final thing worth addressing is e-waste. You will find silver contacts and switches, and gold plating can be found on different connectors and fingerboards. And on circuit boards, different components can contain precious metals, so you may get decent money for them, depending on where you are. And real quick, I never do this, but I would love for this video to do well. So, if this has done anything for you, please like, subscribe, maybe even share. Do it right now. It helps a lot. Now there's lots more to learn about each of these, so I've linked my playlist of more in-depth videos for anyone who would like to know more. We didn't even talk about lead or pewter or carbide or any number of exotics, but this should be everything you need to get started. Ask your scrapyard about their categories and how they'd like things sorted, and if you'd like to level up your scrapping with 10 years worth of knowledge of how to find more high quality scrap and make more money doing it, then watch my next video, which I will link right here after it comes out. Thanks for watching. Leave it better than you found it. Keep doing the thing.